300 miles north at the Mead Art Museum in Amherst, Massachusetts, a very different kind of enigma lies locked away. Is it a freakish abomination of nature or an elaborate hoax? The answer is revealed when we return to the mysteries at the museum. The Mead Art Museum at Amherst College in Massachusetts holds an extensive collection of fine arts and world artifacts. But locked out of public view in the basement vault lurks a grotesque creature. Its origins and identity are shrouded in mystery. Only a handful of people have ever gazed upon it. One of the few that has had the dubious privilege is the Mead's curator, Elizabeth Barker.
When I first took the job at Amherst College, I was eager to see everything we had in the art collection. The room I looked in last was a little bit spooky. The room has a real aroma when you walk in. You can smell that many of the things have natural components. And if you turn to the side and look suddenly on one of the shelves, there's an absolutely terrifying figure there. When I first saw it, I have to admit, I opened the door and walked out for a minute and asked what it was. Probably the first thing that captures your attention are the nasty little claws. And then you notice the tiny sharp teeth and the extremely disturbing desiccated skin.
But its most unusual feature is its scaled aquatic body. Little is known about this half-fish, half-humanoid specimen, except its alluring name, the Fiji mermaid.
This particular specimen predates the Mead Art Museum at Amherst College. We know that the college owned it by 1890, and we assume that it was acquired as a specimen for teaching natural history.
Is it conceivable that this object is the remains of a rare aquatic species native to the South Pacific? Or the basis for the mermaids of myth and legend? The possibilities are enthralling, which is why Barker is on a mission to find out what the mermaid is and where it came from. The first step in her investigation is to take a look inside the curious creature.
In this X-ray, you can see part of the skull. We're guessing that this was probably some sort of monkey.
But the creature's skull has clearly been stitched onto an artificial body.
There's one very long wooden stake that runs the length of the figure from the neck to the end of the tail. And all through the piece, these bright lines indicate metal supports.
The X-rays prove it. Rather than mermaid, the artifact is man-made. So where did it come from? And how did it get the provocative and misleading name, Fiji mermaid? 1842, New York City. P.T. Barnum, founder of the famous circus, is the most infamous showman in the country. A master of self-promotion, he is known for his collections of over-the-top, weird, and wonderful curios from around the world. And he has made a small fortune selling visitors the chance to see these improbable oddities firsthand. When he stumbles upon a bizarre artifact from Asia with the head of a monkey and the tail of a fish, he comes up with a plan to promote it as a showstopper, a real-life Fiji mermaid.
Barnum developed a brilliant strategy. Rather than simply present it himself, Barnum arranged to introduce this to the American public very subtly.
He gives the artifact to a friend and has him pose as a visiting British scientist claiming to have found a real mermaid. When the press catches wind of the story, they run wild. Barnum puts the mermaid on display, sits back, and watches the profits pile up.
It was enormously popular. People couldn't wait to see it. In the first 4 weeks of its display, it earned the equivalent of $90,000 in modern money.
But in 1865, the show comes to an abrupt end when Barnum's collections burn to the ground. But what became of the Fiji Mermaid? Many wonder if it too met the same fiery fate.
We don't know exactly what happened to the original Fiji Mermaid.
What Elizabeth Barker does know is that the mermaid in the collection of the Mead Museum of Art in Amherst bears the same name as Barnum's headlining attraction. How it came to be in the museum is still a mystery.
We really don't know how it came here. But since we're not near a body of water, we can assume she didn't swim.
The tale of the Fiji Mermaid and how it captivated the imagination of a country is a testament to the audacity and showmanship of one of America's greatest entertainers. More than 100 years later, the nation would be gripped by a very different spectacle. A life or death crisis that played out in the darkest reaches of outer space. At the center of the story is this small metal box. What role did this unassuming gadget play in one of the most dramatic space rescues of all time?
Houston, we've had a problem.
Next on Mysteries at the Museum. The Space Center in Houston, Texas, is dedicated to the history of the legendary NASA space program. It has preserved a one-of-a-kind collection of the U.S. spacecraft that pioneered our explorations into outer space. But the most noteworthy piece in this collection isn't a rocket or a spacesuit. And its importance is not immediately apparent to the untrained eye.
At first glance, it's kind of just an ugly metal box.
This small gray canister played a pivotal role in the story of a near-tragic space mission, a tale that has been told and retold countless times. But relatively few have ever laid eyes on this life-saving piece of interstellar technology. What did this unremarkable spacecraft part do to earn its place among the celebrated monuments of the space age? The answer lies in an ill-fated voyage that took place 40 years ago. April 11, 1970. 1 year after the iconic moon landing, NASA launches its third mission to the moon. This bold new expedition will send a manned lunar lander from an orbiting shuttle onto the moon's surface to explore its mountainous terrain. The crew consists of veteran astronaut Jim Lovell and two rookies, Jack Swigert and Fred Haise. Little do they know that their journey will become a legend for all the wrong reasons. The mission is Apollo 13.
Booster, how do you look? Looks good, Flight. Okay, Sergeant. Looks fine.
55 hours into the flight, everything is going according to plan. But as the spacecraft approaches the moon, something goes horribly wrong.
It was a loud thump. They said it sounded like a shotgun going off.
Hey, Houston, we've had a problem here. Can say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
The incident compels Commander Jim Lovell to utter those now unforgettable words. Houston, we've had a problem. And there was no mistaking their meaning. Something catastrophic has just happened. A large oxygen tank in the spacecraft's main compartment has exploded. Back on Earth, the normally calm, collected engineers of Mission Control are stunned.
The explosion that occurred on Apollo 13 to that point was the worst thing that had ever happened on a space flight.
The blast has crippled the spacecraft. The astronauts are rapidly losing power. And what's worse, their oxygen supply is leaking into space.
Yeah, and it looks to me, looking out the hatch, that we are venting something. We are venting something out into space. Roger, we copy your venting.
The situation is dire. If the astronauts remain in the ship, they face certain death.
They needed somewhere else to go, somewhere else that had a life support system, something that was functioning.
Their only hope of making it back to Earth alive is to retreat into the lunar lander, the small vehicle designed to shuttle them to the surface of the moon.
They looked at the lunar lander as a lifeboat. That was the only way that they were going to survive the next several days that it took to get back to the Earth.
But crammed into the small capsule, it quickly dawns on the men that they face a new and even greater danger.
With every breath of oxygen that they inhaled, they were exhaling a poisonous gas, carbon dioxide, and that was building up in the spacecraft.
The air filtration system in the lunar lander depends on special canisters that remove the carbon dioxide from the air. The problem is that the vessel is only designed to support 2 passengers. There aren't enough filtration canisters in the lunar lander to keep all 3 astronauts alive until they get back to Earth. The only spare canisters they have are in the main cabin of the crippled spaceship. But they are the wrong shape.
The canisters from the command module were not compatible with the lunar lander.
The problem is frustratingly simple. The ship's canisters are square, and the lunar lander's filtration system is cylindrical. The astronauts have less than 48 hours to find a way to make the canisters work, or they will suffocate. Back on Earth, engineers at Mission Control work feverishly to come up with a solution to save the crew.
Let's everybody keep cool, see if we can get some more brain power in this thing. We got one here.
But they are severely limited. Using an identical canister and the only tools that are available to the astronauts, a plastic bag, a tube, and a roll of duct tape, NASA engineers attempt to build an airtight seal that will force air through the square canister. After more than 30 hours of tense trial and error, NASA engineers come up with a design. They relay their makeshift repair to the astronauts, who urgently begin replicating the fix. With only hours until they run out of air, the astronauts wait to see if the canister works.
And just in a matter of minutes, those dangerous levels of the carbon dioxide gas immediately started coming down. The canister is really what kept the astronauts alive.
With their air supply restored, the crew of Apollo 13 can turn their attention to the near impossible task of guiding the lunar rover back to Earth. On April 17, they succeed. Apollo 13 enters Earth's atmosphere and splashes down in the Pacific Ocean.
Odyssey, Houston, we show you on the mains. It really looks great.
A tragedy is averted, and the nation breathes a sigh of relief. And today, this small metal canister remains safely preserved at the Space Center in Houston as a constant reminder of the power of human tenacity in the face of impossible odds. While Apollo 13 rose to spectacular heights and landed safely, at Michigan's Henry Ford Museum, this futuristic creation, once poised to revolutionize America, crashed before it ever got off the ground.